Before the mainland, there was the sea. An ancient sea, low, warm, almost immovable. The light filtered from above into trembling strips. On the bottom, no trees, no birds, no steps. Only mud, rocks and salt water moving slow. Yet, in there, life was learning to get bigger. Not only one cell, but small, united bodies. A body of many parts. A fragile collaboration. In the silence of the seabed, this was already a miracle. And nobody looking at that sea would have imagined what would come next. Because before the animals, before the forests, before the fish, there was this wait, and the sea, without knowing, was preparing the future. The first multicellular forms did not look like monsters. They seemed delicate, slim sheets, bunches, small folds of living matter, no armor, no bite, no eye. They attacked the bottom, or floated just above the sediment. The water touched them as a continuous breath. Around, bacteria and algae filled the sea of an almost invisible life. These new bodies didn't dominate anything. They held, and resisting at that time was already a form of conquest. There were those who fed by filtering water. There were those who were lying on the bottom, like a trace left by the tide. No noise, no race, only the slow invention of complexity. And from that fragility, one day everything else would be born. For millions of years, the sky was not what we know today. The air changed slowly. Oxygen increased slightly, invisible but powerful. It came from the algae, from the light, from a slow and tireless work. The sea kept it, lost it, still absorbed it. Every little change opened a new door. Some organisms could move better. Others could grow more. Life still didn't know she was getting a huge gift. More oxygen meant more active bodies. More energy, more possibilities. On the surface, the world seemed the same, but under the water, history was accelerating. And when life accelerates, the sea never remains quiet for a long time. Then, suddenly, the sea filled with new forms. Not really suddenly for those who lived then, but so it appears, from afar. In a few million years, a huge duration for us, very short for geology, appeared different bodies in quantity never seen. Gushi, Zampi, spine, strange structures, almost improvised. Low water vibrated with movement. The bottom animated creatures crawling, digging, filtering. It was as if the world had decided to try out all possible forms. And many of those forms would have left descendants. Others would have disappeared without a name. But then life seemed endless, and the silence of the past was breaking. Among all the news, one changed everything. See? Before that, life felt, touched, filtered. But an eye, even simple, turned the world into something to chase or fear. Light became information. A shadow could announce a predator. A far-off movement could promise food. In the low sea, small creatures opened and closed their first senses. The bottom was no longer just bottom. It became a scene. And in that scene, whoever saw before had an advantage. The prey was hiding. Hunters learned to get closer to the dark. Every new eye made the sea more dangerous. That's exactly why I live. History had just learned to look around. When there is someone who sees, there is also those who flee. And when there are those who flee, hunting is born. In the Cambrian Sea, there appeared creatures capable of grasping, biting, piercing. The shallow waters were no more peaceful. Every free space could hide an attack. The bodies were harder. The protections multiplied. Some animals rolled over themselves. Others planted in the mud or were confused with the seabed. The escape became a discipline. Survival, a matter of seconds. Yet hunting also grew the creativity of life. Each weapon asked for a defense. Every defense asked for a counterattack. The sea was becoming a cruel school. Among the most successful forms were the trilobites, segmented bodies, hard tastes, compound eyes. It was on the bottom, between light currents and sand grains. Some moved as small old machines. Others closed on themselves when the water changed. They weren't alone. There were brachiopods, sponges, articulate arts, soft and strange creatures. The sea was a mosaic of forms. and every form had a precise task: filter, dig, hunt, defend yourself. The trilobites lasted long, leaving behind traces and fossils. They were small, but they belonged to an expanding world, a world that could never come back simple again. Because when life learns to multiply, the future gets complicated forever. And the sea, meanwhile, kept changing. Later, in different seas, the first vertebrates appeared. At first they were small, discreet, almost transparent, but within them there was something destined to change the planet, a support structure. Before even real bones, they were more resistant fabrics, and then increasingly complex internal skeletons. They nourished between algae and seabeds, chasing tiny foods suspended in the water. Their body was a promise. Not the promise of the domain, but the possibility. Possibility to grow, one day running, one day out of the water that created them. None of them knew, but the future was already taking shape in their backs. And that form would have gone through the immensity of time before becoming a fish. Then something more. For now, it was just a start. The shore was an unstable border. The water retreated and returned. The wind dried the mud. The sun struck mercilessly. Yet right there, life found a passage. The simple algae and the first plants began to colonize the wetlands. They remained close to the water, like those who do not dare yet to go away. Their forms were low, essential, poor defenses. But they had roots. This changed the soil, retained moisture, created shelter. The edge of the world became a laboratory. Every well left by the tide could be a crib. Every mud granule, a possible refuge. The mainland waited without a voice. And for the first time, someone started answering them. Before the great terrestrial creatures, small pioneers arrived. Primitive arthropods, similar to marine scorpions and ancient millipedes, explored the humid shores. They didn't jump into the void. They followed the edge of the water, between moss, mud, and vegetal remains. The air was drier. The harshest light. Every movement made the crust of the soil crack. But they had chitin, articulated legs, protected bodies, and that helped them resist. Where the sea ended, a new kind of risk began. But the land offered something that the sea did not give. Space. Blank space, still to be taken. The first prints on the earth were not a noisy conquest. They were a careful examination. One step, then another, and the planet under them began to change smell. On the earth, the problem was not walking. It was breathing. The air removed water from the body. The heat stole it quickly. The first terrestrial creatures had to protect themselves, close up, adapt. Some developed simple trachees. Others relied on transformed gills or wet surfaces. Each solution was precarious. Every day, a test. At night, the earth cooled and kept moisture better. By day, the sun became an enemy. Those who came out too far from the water could have dried up. Those who stayed too close missed the opportunity to advance. Between these two fears, the strategy was born, and the earthly life learned to move like those who advance, always keeping in mind the way of return. Under the feet, the soil was not yet a soil as today. It was crumbled rock, mud, dead matter. She was learning to hold her life. The mushrooms arrived here, invisible in part, silent, extended underground as thin nets. They collected minerals and primitive roots. Frugivano in the hidden world. And thanks to them, the soil became richer. Then the plants began to grow better, higher, more stable, more capable of holding water and creating shadows. The shore was no longer just a line. It was becoming a place. And where a place is born, some other inhabitants arrive. The land, at last, was learning to feed its future masters. But those who would come after were still far away. One day, some vertebrates approached the shore enough to change history forever. They had robust fins, capable of pushing in the mud. Their bodies could still live in the water, but they already endured short stops outside. Between low channels, marshes, and lagoons, evolution was trying a new way. The legs were not born in a moment. They came from pressures, supports, repeated attempts. Every generation left something more suitable for the shore. These animals were not masters of the earth yet. They were uncertain guests. But on the skin they had already written the future. Because a fin holding in the mud can become an arto. And a limb, one day, can take away from the water. The passage was not elegant. It was hesitant. And that was exactly what made it so important. Then the land became green. Not as green as a garden. Green as a wet and gigantic conquest. Felchy as tall as houses. Equus as stone reeds. The air was filled with spores. The soil was soft, often impregnated with water. Among the trunks, the shadow made everything slower. In those forests, they lived enormous amphibians, insects that today seem impossible, and an infinity of intermediate forms. The breath of the planet had changed again. The plants fixed the carbon. The atmosphere changed. Land life earned extension, height, mass. Under the leaves fell hot and continuous rains, and in that wet shade, the animals found shelter to grow. But growing here also meant competing. In the carbonifer, insects found a favorable world. The oxygen-rich air made it possible for a larger size than usual. Some flew between the ferns as small living engines. Others crawled on the wet soil, hidden under the fallen leaves. Their buzz was not yet the sound of modern summers. It was something more ancient, denser, almost unreal. The wings became instruments of escape, research, and encounter. And with insects, even the low sky of the forest filled with life. The predators learned to chase. The prey learned to distract, run, disappear. Each layer of the environment became useful. The soil, the trunk, the air, the shadow. Nothing was firmer, and the earthly world began to look less and less like a shore and more like a living continent. But the real jump was not running. He was also leaving the water to be born. Some animals developed protected eggs, capable of retaining moisture and nourishment. That changed everything. It was no longer always necessary to return to the pozzo to depose life. The descent could begin far from the shore. The eggshell was a small fortress, a portable room for the beginning of a body. From there onwards, evolution on Earth would no longer have been just an extension of the sea. It would become an autonomous path. Primitive reptiles, then animals more and more suitable for dry, inherited this discreet but huge conquest. The future ceased to depend on water at all times, and freedom became possible. With time, some ancient reptiles became larger, faster, more independent. Their scales kept water better. Their legs held the body away from the mud. They could explore drier territories, more open, more distant from ponds. They didn't erase old worlds. They surpassed them in part, occupying new niches, the land filled with hunts, escapes, territories, defenses. Some evolutionary lines dominated for long-time intervals. Others retreated into the shadows, margins, hiding places. But the rule was clear. Who knew how to adapt to dryness won space? And space on Earth meant survival. The world no longer belonged to its old aquatic inhabitants. The conquest was in progress for a long time. Now it became obvious. The history of life was not a continuous climb. There were huge crises, mari who emptied, forests that disappeared, climates that changed too quickly. Many ancient forms disappeared, but every crisis also left room. And in the empty space came new possibilities. Some lines survived because they were more flexible, others because they lived in improbable shelters. Life was never a single winning species. It was a network of attempts, losses, and repairs. Each extinction redesigned the plan. And the planet, slowly, started again. After major crises, the vertebrates continued to diversify. Some returned to the sea. Others remained on Earth and learned to run, to hide, to hunt. With time, more and more varied forms appear. Amphibians, reptiles, then many more lines. But all this was already written in the first thorns of the ancient sea. In robust fins, in the bones under construction, in the muscles they had learned to support a body out of the water. Every Earth vertebrate carried with it a remote memory. The memory of when life hesitated on the threshold and then chose to move forward. The land became home, but never stopped remembering the ocean, and this memory made the journey even more surprising. In the end, the boundary between water and earth was no longer an absolute frontier. It had become a passage. First multicellular bodies, then your eyes, then the armours, then plants, mushrooms, arthropods, amphibians, protected eggs. Each step prepared the next. No one conquered the earth in one day. The land was taken slowly, with hesitation, with tiny and extraordinary adaptations. And for this reason, the conquest was real. When the animals arrived on the mainland, they did not bring only bodies. They brought a new way of living the planet. Since then, the history of life would not have been just a story of the sea. It would become the story of the whole living world. And the first step, as often happens, was the most difficult.